All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 29 of the In the 11 podcast, hosted by myself, Brendan Griffiths. Today, two very special guests on with me. Been excited to have these guys on. Had this one kind of circled for quite a long time once I saw what they were doing in their podcast. And, you know, it's a very similar kind of concept to what I'm doing, but I'm just excited to hear about their journey, their story, and, you know, them documenting this process as well via this podcast. So I would encourage everyone to tune in and get your notepads out maybe and start to listen up because it'll be a good one. So let's get rolling. So I am joined by Dylan Williams and Sean Vinberg of the infamous Footwork Podcast. Boys,
Infamous.
how we doing?
Infamous.
Doing great.
Yeah, doing good, man. Thanks for having us.
Podcast. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been a long time coming, this one.
Yeah, happy to have you guys on. So I know a little bit about your story and kind of where you're at right now, but maybe if you guys want to kind of give the listeners the update of what's going on right now for you guys.
Sure. So currently we're both in Germany, northern Germany, just outside of Hamburg, both of us. Currently just waiting for the season to start up again. There's just a lockdown. We're both playing in the Regionalliga, which is the fourth tier here in Germany. And yeah, as of now, we're just waiting to find out if we can continue the season or not. But up until now, we can only train. So that's where we are.
Okay. When are you guys supposed to hear something? Do you know about if there's going to be a season or not?
Yeah. So on Monday, the March 22nd, they will have a meeting, and I think if this is the final meeting, if they decide against the season, I think it will just be bagged because there's not enough time to play.
Yeah.
This, like the original season plan is totally gone now. We can't fit in all those games, and there's a new season plan. But if we don't play starting from this meeting, so it'd be 2 weeks of preparation, and then I think first game would be April 10th. I think it's very unlikely that we will play. So fingers crossed. It's out of our control.
Have you had any sort of inkling, like if your coaches said anything, or is it just completely up in the air, sort of?
Around my club, they've stayed rather optimistic, which I guess is kind of uncharacteristic for Germans.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's around the camp. It's been pretty optimistic that we might start sometime in April, and training has reflected that, and we've started to kind of increase the days, increase the intensity, and then also really focus in on, you know, some of the extra stuff to make sure that the injuries are decreasing, all of these things that you do as a preseason fitness test, things like this. So yeah, it's hopeful. But again, I mean, the uncertainty of this COVID situation has really shocked us all for just about a year now, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, really, like, we will see. It's a thing that Germans love to say, "Wir werden sehen," and it's really like all we can do right now.
Yeah. What is that like, I guess, both physically in terms of what you're doing training wise, but also mentally to kind of stay hyper focused, but also, you know, you don't know, there's so much uncertainty. Like you said, you don't know if you'll actually get to play, or you don't know if you might have to figure out a new opportunity coming up really soon, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Dylan and I, so we are separate teams now, and we don't live together. But when the pandemic first happened, like we were living together at the time, and like it was clear, like we don't know when. So this was back in March. We don't know when the season will start again. We're thinking maybe in a few weeks.
But we were pretty naive on that, huh?
We were very naive, yeah.
I think we all were. We all thought it was going to be, you know,
exactly.
like a month maybe.
We're like, 4 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks. 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
It's like, 2 months. We just said, you know, you have to create a new goal, a new aim, and like that was to make sure you're physically fit so that, say, the season did start, you could play a game tomorrow and be 100% fine. So you just, you know, keep training, control what you can, make sure you're physically fit, stay active. We started the podcast, right? Staying busy, keeping idle time is not really the best for you, especially for the mind. Stay busy. You're working towards a new goal, and this is so out of our control. There's no reason to get down on it or be upset about it or, oh, this is unfair, because everyone's going through it. And that's just a losing mentality. And it's not going to bring you anywhere forward, right? It's going to just take you backwards.
Yeah.
So. And just to piggyback off of what Sean was saying, as soon as the gyms were closed and all of these things, Sean and I, we ordered a kettlebell, we had bands, and there's a little park like right near our apartment, and we used to go and set up, and we were like the first ones out there. And everyone, you lived in Germany, right? So you understand that you get the stares pretty quickly. And we called this place the Yard because it was like our little prison yard where we would just go and we would work out, we would do sprints, we bring the kettlebell, we have the bands every day, like no excuse, because what else, all we had was time, and all we had was uncertainty. And like Sean said, the idleness isn't the best thing for this time, these types of events. So yeah, we focused on that direction. And yeah, I mean, looking back on it, I've very fond memories about like just putting in that work, just the process. And yeah, it's continues to be uncertain and it sucks, but these are kind of like the moments that can make you and really prepare you for even tougher individual events.
Yeah, I think you guys kind of touched on a really important point about specifically with the pandemic, but also just kind of this career pursuit as a whole is there's so many things out of your control, and you really just have to focus on the things that you can control. You know what I mean? And sometimes it feels like that lane of stuff that you can control becomes very small, and it can be overwhelming at times. Do you guys ever feel that, even in times before the pandemic when I guess the world was a little bit more normal?
Sure. I mean, like there's a lot in this industry, in the professional football world, like there's a lot of things that are out of your control. And at first it is tough, and if you might feel that it's unfair, unjust what happens, but like that's just how it works. And
exactly, yeah,
you either adapt, right, or you lose, right? You're gonna quit and hang up the boots, or you can adapt and work with it and figure out ways to get around it. And it's all about perception. So if you're working as hard as you can and you do everything you can do and you've played the best you can, there's nothing to be upset about at the end of the day, right? Because that's at some point, if you continue to put in the work and you continue to put everything you have into this whatever the dream is, even if what you thought was your dream doesn't work out, it's going to lead you into a new path because of all the hard work and dedication you've put forth.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, just the uncertainty, like you said, there's a lot of things that are not in your control. So I think it's very important to kind of focus in and narrow in on the things that you can control. So during these times, what can I do to get better? I can work on my weak foot. Sean and I did that a bunch, where we would just sit with a ball 20, 30 yards, and we would just hit left foot pings with, just for an hour, just working on some things that, were not perfected in our game yet. And yeah, I think one of Sean's favorite quotes is the proper preparation prevents poor performance. So, with all of these things, as long as you make sure that you're putting in the work, it doesn't even have to be that you play your best game or play your best in training. As long as you know that you're putting in the work behind the scenes, you can never really look back at it with regret.
Yeah, absolutely. And you guys, amidst everything and amidst all the things that you couldn't control, you guys have kind of both carved your way in this career so far and had what many would argue is really successful careers up to this point. Could you maybe kind of talk to the listeners through, maybe give them a bit more of the journey? Like Dylan, if we want to start with you, where are some of the places that you've been to? Where's the game taken you so far, and where it kind of leading you to now?
Yeah. So I mean, I've been quite blessed with just being able to see the world on this entire journey and meet people. And, out of college, Sean and I both went to SUNY Oneonta, which is a D3 school up north in upstate New York. Mm-hmm. And, I played a season of MPSL right out of college, just trying to figure out what was next, trying to find an opportunity. I knew I wanted to play at this point. And then through some combines, one with a soccer visa, I went out to Australia. I played in the MPL Tasmania there, which is technically the second tier in the Australian football system. They call it soccer there too, actually. I thought they would call it football, but unfortunately not.
Yeah, because they have their own Aussie rules.
Yeah, they have the Aussie football rules, which is a crazy thing in its own, going to some of those games, man. Some brutes. But yeah, so I played a season there. I did quite well. I made it onto the team of the year, some man of the match performances. I enjoyed my time there, but I knew Australia, like I knew I didn't want to stay in Australia. I knew I wanted to get into Europe. That's been one of my goals for, a long time. And, nothing really came about for a while. I was not sitting at home, but I was just putting in work at home, just, praying that I'd get something. Did another, like a showcase kind of thing, in Iceland. And through that, I got an opportunity in Sweden in the 4th division, which was the 6th tier of Swedish football. And I was there with, it varied, but between 7 and like 10 Americans at different times. Michael Corby, right?
Yeah, we were together in Germany.
Yeah. Okay. So I known him quite a while growing up, and along with him and other Americans, we ended up winning the league there, and we were promoted, which was, something I'll never forget. Even in those lower tiers, just the the amount that goes into it, the amount that people care, and we were really hungry to win, and so we did. And through that, I got a different opportunity with the next team in a promoted league, one above that, a better team, better facilities, better everything. And, I was doing quite well there. And unfortunately, through a visa situation that was kind of out of my hands, I had to leave the country. Thankfully, I knew Sean was nestled here in Hamburg, Germany. So I made some calls. And he got me a trial with his team, actually, in Oberliga, which is the 5th tier. And through then, I've played a half season there. I played a few games for a different team in the same league. And then this past summer, I was on trial with a ton of teams. And then right before, I found my new home with Eintracht Norderstedt, which is where I am now. Like Sean said, 4th tier in the Regionalliga. And I'm hoping to stay here for a little bit longer. We'll see how everything goes, but, I really like it here, really enjoy it here. And yeah, so far, man, just been blessed. I'm not sure. Maybe that was a bit long, winded,
Oh,
but
no, not at all.
It's been a very fun journey. And I'm looking forward to see where it takes me next.
Yeah, I can imagine. And just quickly, I definitely want to hear your story as well, Sean, but I think it's interesting, because you played with Julian as well, right, in Sweden?
I played with Julian. Yeah, I played with a few guys who played at Darmstadt with you. Yeah, Julian,
so
Corby. Yeah.
I just think it's kind of another unique thing about, as you start to climb the ladder a little bit, how the circle becomes very, very small. And usually everyone kind of knows at least one person who played with somebody. And
small.
It's just that's cool about this.
We said it like before we started this, just off there, man. It was like, we've heard each other's stuff, and it was just nice to kind of like really get acquainted with, like we're just fellow dream chasers in this whole thing. And so it's exactly like you said, when you start following these goals and these dreams, you kind of start to follow, and you start to become close with other people who are doing the same thing, because it's just so much easier to relate and to share stories, and then to help each other, because we know that, we can trust these kind of people who think like this, like us.
Exactly. I think that's probably what was unique about your experience in Sweden. And I know mine in Germany was I was just around all these other guys, specifically some of whom were American. And we just, we all thought almost the same way. We're all trying to get to the same place. And exactly like you said, now it's kind of, you have that bond built, and you want to help them. If they're like, hey, can can I get a trial with your team, or can you help me out in any way? Those are the types of things that you want to do, because you know what they're about, and you want to help them out.
And those are the strongest connections. Like, they're 100% the strongest connections that you form. I mean, even outside of soccer, these guys you form a special bond with, and, you're very, very, very inclined to trust these guys. And, this is what we all do. We're all on the same kind of path.
Yeah, 100%. And so, Sean, you have a little bit of a different kind of start to your career, I know for sure, but eventually kind of made it to a similar path as Dylan. Mm-hmm. Kind of walk us through that.
Sure. Yeah. So same as Dylan, right out of college. We graduated the same year, 2016. Played an NPSL season up in Northern New York, because I was doing student teaching at the time, but was actually a full-time teacher. Just a weird situation that I was lucky to have. And then the September of that year, did a combine with Soccer Pass. Did well enough. It was for a team in Portugal. I wound up going to Portugal in January of 2000. This would have been 2017. And like we talked about in the beginning, there was a lot of things that were totally out of my control. And it did not go well at all. I was there for 2 weeks. I played a total of 2 days. And they basically said, like, we like what we see, but we would like you to come back at the end of January. We have, a bit more time. And at that point, I spent $2,000 already out of my pocket. And I was like, all right, this timing was bad. The coach got sacked. Let's move on from this. And then I had an opportunity from the same guy to go and play in Mongolia, in the Mongolian Premier League, which is the first tier, big Mongolian Premier League there. And so I went there.
Is that on FIFA?
Not on FIFA. I don't know why.
Yeah, shame.
I'm sure that was a big boy contract.
Oh yeah, big money. So yeah, I went there. My reason being is that I always heard from cousins and other players that it's important to never have a gap in your career, to always play. And when you look in your CV and resume, it's important that you have fluidity in your playing and you never stop. So I said, you know what? The season in Mongolia goes from April to October. My plan is I'm going to go there, I play a season, and then I'm going to head to Europe once I get back in the January transfer window. So I went there, obviously, just crazy culture shock, different experience, fun. I went there originally with 3 other Americans, 2 left a few weeks in. So I was just stuck with 1 other American. We lived together. Yeah, I was there for 5 months. Like I said, it's such a cool experience. I mean, a crazy country to live in. So many things I've learned from there. Just awesome culture, totally different than anything that we've ever seen before. And then I came home. Like I said, my plan was to go to Germany. It was to Europe, but I had kind of a connection through a friend that I played with growing up. He was in Germany at the time, and his company, Football Project, they help players kind of get into mostly Germany, Sweden, Northern European countries. Mm-hmm. So I did a combine with them in December, and then sure enough, came here in January, and then originally signed with the team in the Oberliga. Couldn't really play for them because of in Mongolia, I was professional, so I was suspended for 6 months because I didn't sign in the transfer window.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of had to wait around until April to play, and then there was 2 months left in the season, played a few games. Then they didn't want to re-sign me. So I found another team in the Oberliga, same level, 5th tier in Hamburg. Played with them for a season. I had an opportunity to sign for a good club in the Oberliga, one of the better clubs in the league, very early on. So about in February. And I decided no, because I wanted to go on trial for a Regionalliga team, right? Play at a higher level. And I took the chance and said no to a good contract on a good team, because in the spring, I wanted to get a trial and go up a level. I didn't want to stay in the Oberliga. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I got injured, broke my leg, and I couldn't do the trial in the spring. So one could look at that as I was maybe stupid. I shouldn't have done that. But then what happened, I did it in the summer, both of the trials. Each team said no. I signed for another Oberliga team, which is where Dylan and I played together. And then in the winter, I said, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to try and get into the 4th league. I'll find a team, go on trial. And that's what happened. I wound up through an old coach of mine. He knew a team in the Regionalliga that was looking to kind of tighten up their defense. And I went on trial with them. And in 2 days, they wanted to sign me. And that was it. And that was January 2020. And I've been at the same team, Haida SV, ever since.
Wow. Man, and especially with that injury, coming at that time, how difficult was that for you? You feel like you're building this momentum and, you have all this kind of traction, I guess, and then boom, you're hit with an injury like that. I mean, it's something that we all go through as athletes, but.
Yeah. I mean, once again, it's like this injury was kind of a freak accident. Sure. Maybe I could have went about it a little bit differently. It wound up being a stress fracture in my fibula. So I probably could have stopped playing and maybe it wouldn't have happened. But either way, like you said, I had some traction going. I was playing really well in the first half of the season, and started to have some interest from the higher league. And I said no to the contract, and because I knew I wanted to play in a higher league. And then what happened, of course, get injured, can't play. And it's always better to go on trial before, in the spring, before teams make their roster, because if you go in the summer, the teams have their season plan already made, their budget already made. So it's very difficult to get on a team in the summer, because unless you're going to be, one of the starting 11 players, they're not interested, because they've already planned out their season. So I knew that it was going to be difficult in the summer. Both teams said no. So I said, okay, I'm going to go into the Oberliga. There was a few teams that knew me from the first half of the season that were interested. So I knew that I had a backup plan if the Regionalliga team said no. And I told them, I was upfront about it. I said, I will play for you for this first half of the season, but in the winter, like, I want to leave. I want to go up a level. I want to go up a league. And it just worked out to be like that.
That's awesome, man. And I think it also is a testament to kind of a big concept in this game as well. I think both you guys can touch upon is, like, you have to bet on yourself. You know what I mean? 100%. You just have to back yourself and be confident in yourself in any situation that you go into. And, there's going to be fear and anxiety and stuff that you face in situations, but you really have to, like I said, gamble on yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's go ahead though.
All right. I was just going to say, yeah, I completely agree. I mean, just in this last summer, I was on trial with three teams. Yeah, 3 teams before I came to Notre State, and they were all Regionalliga teams, and all 3 of them said no for one reason or the other. And, my agent and I, we didn't even look at it as, we're going to try in the same league that I've been in the 5th tier. We said, we only want to try in the 4th tier. And, luckily the last team that I trialed with was the best on paper. It had been the most successful. So quite crazy to, be turned down by 3 teams that in the past few years haven't been as good. And then the 4th team is the one that wants me and signs me. So, you never know. And it is a testament to that exact fact. Like you said, that you got to back yourself and believe in yourself. And, until the last day, you got to be the first one that's going to fight for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would be interested to hear your guys' thoughts. Maybe we can go into trials for a little bit, and because I've talked about this before on an episode, and I think my kind of thought process going into trials is maybe a little bit unique or different, in that I always go in with that confidence that I can, do well and play at this level. But I think part of me understands, just like we talked about, the scope of this is so wide, and you can be, you can feel like you've done well at a trial and they just won't pick you for whatever reason. It could be regarding your play. It could be not regarding your play. You know what I mean? So I go into it with the mindset of, like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to kill it, but there is a high possibility that this might not work out. And this, it may just be another one to try and get me closer to the one that's actually going to work out. And I think it's worked for me thus far in the sense that it's a little bit taking the pressure off me when I go into the trial, because I can just go and play. And I don't have to, stress the entire time of, is this going to work out? Is this going to work out? So how do you guys kind of battle those emotions of going into a trial? Because it is a high stress thing, even if you're not a footballer, if you have a job interview, nobody's like, oh, that's my favorite part is the job interview, So how do you guys deal with those emotions going into a trial?
Sure. I mean, I'll start off. So, at this point, I can't even count how many trials I've been on. So it's just like another day in the office for me, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But what happens is every time you go on trial and it doesn't work out, or it does work out, right? You've gained experience now. So it's like something you can put in your pocket and learn from it. And there's always, sometimes you're not going to have the best training session, or you might make one mistake. So for example, with the team I'm on now, the first day I thought I had a good training session, but I made a few bad mistakes, right? Just 5v5, give the ball away, the other team scores, right? And you think, maybe if this was in the beginning of my career, I would have think like, oh, that's it. Mm-hmm. They're not going to take me, right? But what happens in sports in our game is, like, you need to be able to recover from a mistake. Just because you're 1-0 down in a game doesn't mean you quit, right? So what you do is, even though this was halfway through the first training session, I'm like, all right, now I'm just going to play, 110% better than I already was. And clearly they saw something that they liked, that the next day they said they wanted to sign me. So we spoke about this on our podcast as well. It's like, what would you do if you didn't have fear? What were you scared of? Right? Like you mentioned, it's a high stress, high anxiety environment, but is that how you're going to play the best? In the perfect world, would you want to walk into a game where you're stressed and anxious and, oh, I'm very nervous, I don't want to make a mistake? Or do you want to go out there and say, no, I'm the best player out here. I'm going to show them what I can do. I'm going to create a presence for myself, demand that, my team, whatever you're doing, and your team's going to win, and you're going to put out your best effort. Right. And that shows is that, can you go into this new environment, be comfortable, earn the players' respect, right? And then also perform. Like a trick of mine is, I'm very big on this, is that when I go into a trial, I want to know everyone on the team's name within the first 5-10 minutes. So you can do this. So beforehand, you can go on their roster. You can just look at the pictures and their names and memorize it. Then you get there and don't go in a corner and, keep to yourself and just juggle a ball on your own. Just talk to people. Like everyone has been in this situation. Most players have been on a trial. They understand it, right? So get comfortable with them. And then when you start playing a game with them and everyone's name, but you've only been here for 30 minutes, what does that say to the players and to the coaches, right? It shows a professionalism about you, that before you even touch a ball, you already have a positive presence there. And then you can just build on this. I mean, so there's many other tips like this, but this is kind of how I go about it.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really too much to add. I think Sean he's had a few more trials than me, so I think he really knows what he's talking about. And maybe just one point to add is that before going into a trial, there's two ways that you can look at it. You can look at it like 100%, I'm going to get this, and you can look at it as, I may get this, and we'll see what happens. And to me, I feel like if you bet on yourself, regardless, whatever happens after is what was going to happen. So to elaborate a little bit more is like, I go into a trial and I think I'm 100% going to get this. I'm confident. If I still get rejected at the end of the day, it's still the same rejection I would get if I had a different mindset. So why not go in and be exactly like, just be as confident as I can be in my ability. Like Sean said, have no fear. It's easier said than done. A lot of times, I'm going back and forth with myself. And sometimes you have to, trick yourself, fake it before you make it. Mm-hmm. And, there's little things that you can take in each time. But, overall, when you stand back and you think like, I could get this trial or I could not get this trial, I think it's important to just be as confident as yourself. So I'm 100% going to get this. If I fail after that, like it's the same exact thing as if I thought any other way. So bet on yourself again is exactly how I would say it.
Yeah, it's a great piece of advice. And I think the overarching kind of thing we can take away from this is, regardless of the outcome, is you're going to grow from this experience. What I really like about what you guys talk about in your podcast is how you talk about how you grow from kind of being in those uncomfortable situations. You put yourself in difficult spots, but you understand that it's going to make you better in the long run. How much do you feel like, you can definitely take it within the context of football, but even just in life, how much do you feel like this journey and this process has made you grow as a human?
Sure. So this point kind of goes right hand in hand with what we just spoke about. So you can take this. So the trials are great, right? It's a high pressure environment. You have to perform. You basically only know that you're going to train this day. You don't know if you're going to be given tomorrow, right? Mm-hmm. But the most important thing that you can take now into life is preparation builds confidence. If you prepare properly, you don't have to worry about it. I don't know if I'm going to be tired during this. I really haven't touched the ball enough in the past few weeks, or I don't know if I'm fit enough, or this my muscles hurting here, right? If you are properly prepared, you've done everything you can do, that immediately you have more confidence now. So you can take that anywhere outside of the game, where if you're going into an interview, say you've prepared all you can about whatever job it is, that it now becomes not they're interviewing you and you're nervous about asking a question, but rather you're interviewing them. What does your job have to offer me? I can do this, this, and this, and this. Sure, I am capable of whatever the job is offering. That's why I'm sitting in front of you, right? But why would I want to work for you? You can only this is something you do in your head, right? But just flip the switch. Mm-hmm. It's not you're walking into their office and you're going to have to answer a million questions, but rather you're walking into them and then they're asking you and providing you reasons why you should work for them. Right? This is just a little mind game you can play with yourself, but it instills confidence, and that comes out in your presence.
I like that. I never heard you say anything like that before. That was cool.
Yeah, when you were just talking, I mean, it's kind of like for example, when the lockdown first happened, like our first thought was, all right, we got to get a kettlebell, right? Of course, we need something to train with, but it was like, let's be so ready. So when, naively thinking in 2 weeks, when the season starts, we know that players are going to be slacking off for these 2 weeks, where we're out here in the yard grinding away, making sure we're better than we were 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just obviously kept getting elongated. But yeah, that's the idea of it, is like, just keep moving forward, keep attacking goals and crushing goals, so that whenever the next opportunity comes knocking, you are ready. Yeah. And you have nothing to worry about and regret. Like, I've been in situations where I'm like, I don't know if I've done enough preparation, and it's a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
Because then you're not focused on just performing, but it's like you have these thoughts in your head, like, I could have done more. Yeah. You don't want to ever have that thought.
Yeah, I completely agree with Sean. And just to take it, like you said, it didn't have to be soccer related, just to take it off the field. I mean, my first contract abroad was in Australia, where the time difference is just insane. If you want to talk to anyone from home and, friends, family, Germany, 6 hours. So you can do it. You can plan, you can, even spontaneous. But in Australia, it's like, it's tough. So, I mean, these little things like this, going, crazy abroad on my first trip, I think the first one's always the hardest. It's like ripping the Band-Aid off. And then after that, each one just becomes a little easier and easier. And I think one of the biggest things for me from that first one was just learning how to be alone, and learning how to grow alone, and learning how to sit with my thoughts, even if it was after a bad game, just sit with them for a second, and just being, okay with myself, and okay with what I'm choosing, and okay with the work that I'm putting in. So, it's like we always say, and, you can't grow in a comfortable place. And I truly believe that in any situation. And it's important not to just kind of be stagnant and just be happy where you are, and just always kind of, obviously happy with each goal that you cross off, but still looking to build off them. And I think it's just important to just try and be a better version of yourself every day. And I truly believe these, especially the first ones, really helped me kind of instill this value into my life.
Yeah. I mean, I talked about it just on my last episode, and I think you guys kind of hit it right off the top, is how I didn't even realize it until I kind of got over here to Europe, is just, I would say it's probably 80-90% just mental. You know what I mean? Like, we've all played football our whole lives, and we know how to play the game. That's not really, yes, we're going to play at maybe higher or lower levels, and there'll be different things that are faced, but there's nothing that we see within the game that is just a complete shock to us. But I think what hit me, especially on my first time over, was just how much, like you guys talked about, how much idle time there is, and how you really have to work on kind of your brain and your mental strength as well. And, there's going to be times where you have bad training sessions or bad matches, or you miss home, or, a million other things. And you have to kind of, like you said, Sean, sometimes almost kind of Jedi mind trick yourself, and you have to change the narrative inside your own head. I know I've been victim of being a player in the past that can get super down on myself after a terrible training session. But it's like, if you're the only one there, and, you're coming back to that apartment and you're all on your own, and you're talking to yourself, you can't just, kick the hell out of yourself for the rest of that night. That's going to do you no good. So, I mean, I know you guys just kind of talked about it, but maybe walk us through, because you've done it for a number of years now, any of those tips or tricks, or really what you've learned about how to become that much more mentally strong. Because I can tell, even talking to you guys for the past 30 minutes, like, you guys have, in a way, sort of sorted that part out and made it easier for yourself.
I mean, it's a never ending process, right? Like, none of us are experts, and we have a lot to learn, but there's always, from every experience, we can take something from it. So I think that in terms of preparation builds confidence, experience also builds confidence. You've been through this before, you've done it before. And like you said, of course, there were times when I was younger, especially in colleges, like, you've had a bad game or a bad training session, and then the rest of your day is ruined. Like all I can think about is how bad I performed. And it's an obsession, but it's not a good obsession, right? Because getting down on myself and just being mad and angry is not going to help me play better the next time I get out there. Instead of looking at it as, okay, what did I do well today? And what could I have done better? And then tomorrow I'm going to do that part better and continue to do the things that I did well and do those again. And then eventually it becomes that it's going to do this well, right? I might make one little mistake in training, but that's just a standard that I'm going to keep doing this well. And then there's going to be a new thing. Oh, I could have done this better today. I need to work on that. For example, with Dylan, we would hit a long ball with our left foot over and over and over again. Why? Because we saw that this is something that we should work on. Another thing that I never really did before the lockdown is just juggle a tennis ball. Juggle a tennis ball. Can you do that 50 times, 100 times? Can you do it with just your left foot, just your right foot? Right? There's so many different things you can improve on that it's like a never-ending process. And through this, I really think this builds confidence and mental strength. Or doing hard things, doing hard workouts, going for hard runs, preparing yourself in a way that, like, you know, if I'm on the field with you two, in my head, I'm saying I did more work than both of these. I'm more prepared. So like I'm more confident than both of these players, and I'm going to take their position. And when you go into a trial, that's what you're doing.
For us.
You talking about us? You talking about us?
For example,
you looking at me?
Yeah, I feel like you're staring into my soul, man. Calm down.
When you go into a trial, it's like an unspoken thing that everyone knows. Say you're going into a trial as a right back, right? Whoever the right back is on the team currently now knows, okay, they're trying to take my jersey off my back, right? This is what sports are. You have competition within the squad and you're fighting for 11 places on the field. And that's just the harsh reality of it. And how can you gain an edge over this opponent is just through preparation. I mean, it's really what it comes down to for me, is just preparing and experience and learning from it and continuing to do that over and over and over again.
Yeah, just to piggyback off Sean again, especially in my early years abroad, like I definitely couldn't have had a podcast where I spoke confidently about it, because I think I was learning each time with it. And I think, I'm still learning and improving techniques. I mean, after a bad game, it's still so hard for me to sleep. And these are things that I just am constantly working on, trying to detach myself from the game when it's appropriate. But there's a lot of tips and tricks along the way. I think one thing that I always come back to is, with the path that we've all chosen, it's like, if I wanted to be stressed, I would have picked a desk job. I kick a ball around for a living. So like, why am I going to be as stressed as a guy who's, doing something he doesn't like? I love this, so I try and look for the best of it in every situation. Yeah, I had a bad training. Okay, next one, that's an opportunity to play better. Okay, that's going to be easier to play better next time. I'm going to have fun. So I think it's important to look at as, like Sean said, there's always opportunities to get better. And I don't think that should be a negative thing where like, this is a never ending story. It just really comes back to being in love with the process of getting better. So every single training, every single game, no matter if I played bad the one before, this new one's an opportunity. I might play bad again, but that's just what it is. And I kick a damn ball around. So I really like my complaints at the end of the day. You're away from family a lot. You're away from friends, but this is what we chose. So you could choose anything you want. And we chose to kick a ball around. So might as well have fun, enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, kind of to piggyback off what you guys have said, is I've kind of gotten to the point now where, I still want this like crazy, I still want to pursue it, but I know now, like, I'm a little bit at peace with the fact, like, if tomorrow is to get some terrible injury, I know I could never play again or something like that. I know I've done everything in my power to pursue this to the best of my ability. And I've given it my best, and that kind of gives me some peace in this as well. And like you said, I've been able to chase a ball around Europe. Like, how many people, especially in our shoes as Americans, how many people can say that they've played a match in Germany? Like, I even see the Leverkusen jersey behind you. Like, that's a short list of Americans that can say that they've played against, you know what I mean? And, for me now playing in Denmark, I think I love to be motivated and pushing myself towards the future. But again, I do like to kind of sometimes take a second to realize all that I have accomplished and that it's no small feat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to do constantly. I mean, Sean and I more so when we live together, just at random moments, we'd be like, holy shit, we're in Germany, and just like say that to each other. And we'd be like, take a second, like, oh my God, we are in Germany. Like it really is crazy what we're doing. And it's no small feat. Like you said, regardless of wherever we make it, we tried this and we played games in these places where a small list of Americans and, especially from our towns and colleges and stuff. So, it is, I think, very memorable and we should be very proud of it. And, I think it's very easy to kind of pursue this and have one foot in and one foot out. And I would advise against that because I think, like you said, once you're fully immersed in it and that you're giving everything, what happens after that at the end of the day, is just what happens. And you may be looking back at it like, oh, I could have went this far, but at least it wasn't like, oh, I have no idea where I would have been.
Yeah.
I think these are important things that you should take into account when pursuing something like this.
Yeah, I think probably, I'm guessing it's similar for you guys as well. One of the driving kind of ideas in my life is just, I don't want to look back, I don't want to look back and say, what if? I don't want to look back and have any regrets. Yeah. I want to know that I did everything that I possibly could and I got to this level or I didn't get to this level. Like that kind of, like we're saying, the chips are going to fall where they will. But, I've known guys that I've had conversations with who are like, yeah, I left a little bit early and I kind of regret it. And I don't want to have that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I was just listening to a podcast and I forget who it was, but it was a great point. How like so what Dylan just spoke about and what you just mentioned is that we're committing 100% to this, right? We're trying to make this happen. Right. But at the same time, we're in love with the process, not the end result of it. Mm-hmm. But, we know, okay, we've done everything we can do. We were able to play at this level. And then, we went down a different opportunity. We got to this level, but I put everything I can do. But for the people that don't go, they go 80% in, 70% in, right? And then it doesn't work out. They can always say, oh, it's because I didn't try, or, oh, because I could have did more, right?
Yeah.
So you never failed because you don't want to fail. But if you're not basing your success or failure off the end result, then you can't fail. This is just a process, right? You're always pushing yourself, but there is no failure. Mm-hmm. There's what is the definition of failure? Define to me how any of our careers can be a failure. If it's not, okay, I want to play for Chelsea one day and I didn't get there, oh, I failed. Like that's the wrong mindset to have. It's just a process. And every day I'm going to get better. I'm going to get to the highest level I can get. And then one day when I'm going to go down a different path, I'm going to do the same thing there. And it's like, have a direction, not an endpoint. Right? I think I've mentioned that before. It's like you're working towards something, but there isn't an end. It never stops. Whether you're doing this in football, or you're doing this in your future career, it's a never ending thing.
Yeah, I'm happy you just mentioned that exact point about failure, because I had a conversation with a former coach of mine and a mentor last night because, I didn't have the best training session. And I was like, I just want to talk to somebody, just kind of talk through it. And I think sometimes I had become, especially when I was younger, I'd become so tunnel visioned on that end product, right? Like I just want to say I'm a pro and that's it. And, maybe 21-year-old me only saw this journey having one way to deem it a success. It was only if there's a contract and that's it. Anything else is a failure. And I think now, right, like that's still kind of the overarching goal, but it's a little bit more fluid than that. As you mentioned, it's more about the process. It's more about the journey. It's trying to become the best person that I can be and, giving it my best. And again, like you said, how can that be a failure if you're just trying to, pursue what makes you happy and become the best at it? It's dangerous, like you said, to have just this one singular thing that's like, if I don't get there, then it's a bust. It's a failure.
Yeah. 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 It's one of the problems with just having, goal-based thinking is like you could fail and then it could just deter you from actually accomplishing the things that you can accomplish. So that's like the direction, like you boys said, is the most important thing. And, I think, we had very similar thinkings early in our careers where it was, I'm getting a professional contract. These are like the things that I would write down. And this was like all that I really cared about. I think that has a lot to do, especially when you're coming out of college, is like, it's kind of just like the clout of it. It's kind of just having the notoriety.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you kind of get into the world and you see how much it is and how tough it is, I think those goals kind of alter a little bit. And I think it takes a very brave person to like admit that and then come to terms with like, okay, this maybe I wasn't doing for the right reasons and I didn't have the right intentions. Let me circle back, refocus, rethink like what is my goal or what is my real direction in this. And then these are the processes that you become in love with.
Yeah. And I think I would ask Dylan if you can expand on this a little bit, because I know I've heard you guys talk about this on your podcast, and I know I've been a victim to it over the past, probably more so in my younger years. But I think part of that thinking that you just mentioned comes a little bit from comparing yourself to, other players or other people.
Mm-hmm.
I find myself doing that a lot. I'm like, oh, like he just signed a contract, or like I said, probably a little bit more when I was younger, but I still do it now. He just signed a contract here, or he just signed a contract here. When is that going to happen for me? Is it going to happen for me? And then too, sometimes the flip side of that is, you have friends at home that are not in the game. And, my best friend's about to have a kid this summer. And I'm like, all right, well, we're
different
in two
lives.
Very different places in our lives right now,
Yeah.
And I think you sometimes that can cripple you if you become too much into that comparison. Do you find that you maybe had that a little bit when you were younger as well, or still even struggle with it?
I think I still have it. I mean, I think these are some things that you never truly like. You can't perfect all of these things because the mind is a very, it cannot be controlled to the extent we want it to be. So like, I'm still comparing myself to players. It's more so now like players that I'm playing against more than like, he got a contract here, or like, look at this. I think that just comes with being a little bit more, just secure in where you're going with your direction, like the things that we just spoke about. But yeah, I mean, I truly think these are the areas that we can always improve. I'm still comparing myself. And these are things that I'm trying to work on for sure.
Yeah.
Sean, anything to add to that?
Yeah, just perfect example, segue there, Brendan. So for example, this goes back to mindset, right? So sure, when we were younger, we'd always compare, I'm better than this player and he signed there. That's not fair, right? Or we can look at it like this. I went to the same school as Dylan, right? Brendan, you played at a very similar level to us. And Dylan has a Bayern Leverkusen jersey behind him that he played against. So that means because I played with him, that means that I can play at that level too. I'm not jealous of Dylan's experience. All that does is give me more motivation and more reasoning that that's possible for both of us, right? If he's able to do it, so am I. I played with him. We played at the same level. We played in the Oberliga. We played in the fourth tier. He failed at trials. I failed at trials. We're all on the same journey. And instead of looking at it as that's not fair, he got it, I'm jealous of it. It's just more reasoning that this is going to happen for me. Right. And I completely agree with the situation is exactly the same. It's just you're thinking about it in a different way.
It's another example of just kind of flipping the switch. It's another Jedi mind trick. Especially out of college, I remember hating just in my head, like just being a big hater. It's like, oh man, like I'm better than him. Like, how is this guy playing USL and I can't even get a call back, but it's that same thinking. Like it just gives you more belief. Like this is totally possible. Like Sean and I have played against guys who play in third, second Bundesliga, like first Bundesliga. And it's like, I've found myself that I can play against these people and I didn't feel out of touch and I was confident. Right. Like, so why can't that be me? Not in terms of like, why isn't that me, but why can't that be me? There's no reason it can't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would 100% agree. I think if you can turn it into a positive, it's so much more beneficial to you. I know there were players that I played with in Germany that went on to then sign contracts in the NISA in the next year. And it was like, it almost reassures you, like you said, Sean, it's like, okay, they were actually as good as I thought they were. And I was close to that level, or I was right around that level. So that means I'm not far off. And I think also it kind of shows a level of maturity for us, as we're developing as players and just people, like, I know for me, I don't get as jealous now, but I'm like happy for people that get that big break or they get that contract, because it's like, I know, especially my friends that have gone on to sign something, I know how much they had to go through to get there. And it just shifts a little bit. I don't know where exactly it happens, but somewhere along the way, like, I know for either of you guys, when I see somewhere that you guys are about to sign somewhere big, it's not going to be like this inner seething of, oh shit, like I'm not where they are. I think it's going to just be, you want the people around you to do well.
Right. Yeah. And it's reassuring when you see people that you're close with, or that you're close friends, or you've played with them on the same team. If they're signing these contracts, that means that you can sign the contracts. With signing a contract, there is a lot of luck involved in terms of what team's looking for a certain position. Like Dylan said, he was on trial for 3 separate teams that, if you looked at the previous season's table, they were all towards the bottom. Now, if he failed in the first 3 trials and then someone said he's going to go sign for the team that finished in 3rd place last season, you would say there's no shot. He just failed at these bottom 3. Why would he go to the top of the table now and sign there? And then what happened? He goes there and gets signed within a few days, and then winds up playing in the cup game against Leverkusen. So it's like, there is a little bit of luck involved. So sometimes it's just not going to happen. They're not looking for your position. And you know that, okay, if this player signs here, we know that we're all at a similar level. If he can do it, so can I. And it shouldn't be a discouragement. It should encourage you to continue to do what you're doing, and you're going to get a break soon enough. It's like, I failed when I broke my leg and I didn't get signed that summer. I could have said, oh, this is ridiculous. But no, I was like, oh, wait, I trained with both of these teams and they said no. But during training, I was very comfortable. I'm just as good as these players. So next transfer window, next opportunity, I'm going to find a team that is looking for a player like me, because I know now that these 2 teams are at the top of the league last year. I can play at this level. There's no question. So now let's wait for the next opportunity, and then I'll be ready for it.
Yeah, 100%. And just to keep piggybacking off of Sean's making great points and stealing the show, but it's kind of like what you guys both said is the circle that you create and the connections that you create. Like, you start to root for each other because you have all of the same values. So it just feels nice that someone that believes in the same, things that you do, has the same values of pursuing a dream over trying to just have, just money and things like this, security. Like, you root for those people because they feel like you, and it just kind of you see a reflection of them in yourself. And, even in a selfish way of thinking, it is like, okay, he got on that team. That's a connection, like the hating is obviously, we just tend to be haters sometimes because we always compare, but at the end of the day, like, it should be seen as a positive, because yes, this is like a reflection of the same values that we're trying to instill and help other people to realize that they can follow these dreams. And 2, like, he gets on a team. Sean signs for St. Pauli tomorrow in the 2nd Bundesliga. That's a connection for me. Like, now he could be whispering in the coach, like the ear of the coach, saying, I know a crafty midfielder, like, take a look at him on trial. And the coaches will listen to players all the time. This happens so often. So, be happy and cheer on other people, because there's really no other reason not to.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. That's so common that players will vouch for other players. And that's how a lot of guys get contracts. Like you just said, if a midfielder goes down and Sean's next opportunity, oh, hey coach, like, I know somebody who could come in and fill those shoes right away. And I think as everyone's listening to all 3 of us talk, what should be important, and you can kind of take this in the context of our footballing career, but also like our podcast, I think a lot of people would say our podcasts are very similar. They are, like, we're kind of talking about the same thing, but why I think you can find value in both of what we talk about and what all 3 of us talk about is that everyone's journey is going to be different. And so you can take value in that. You guys played in upstate New York and I played in Philly, and then I went here and then you guys went there. Like, there's value in everyone's story, and there's value in listening and learning. And then maybe you do it a little bit different. Maybe you listen to some of the things that I talk about and you're like, okay, that seems smart that Brendan did, but then that seems like a really dumb decision. I'm not going to do that. And same thing with you guys. You know, some may look at Australia and be like, okay, Dylan talked about how Australia was a good opportunity, but he knew he wanted to get to Europe because that was really where the springboard was going to be for his career. Like, I think that's another piece of that puzzle of being supportive of your teammates and your friends and connections, because they can help you maybe. And also you want to be happy for them, but also just recognizing that everyone's journey is going to be different. So you can't look at somebody and think and be jealous of them, because no one's going to have the identical story. You know what I mean?
Never. And yeah, it's just, you're 100% right. I mean, different experiences create different stories and create different mindsets. So Sean and I mean, we agree on a lot of things, but there's a lot of things that we don't have the same mindset on, or we just don't have the same tendencies to look at things. I think a lot of the core values can be the same amongst all three of us, but different experiences really create this. And this is why you should listen to both of our podcasts, because we have different things to talk about. A lot of similar values, but different ways that we've dealt with different adversities. You know, there's not one path, I think, and that should be very, very key for everyone to hear. There is not one path, and your path will be 100% different. And there's things that you're going to have to learn on your own. And, you know, but there's a lot of things that you can learn from the people that came before you and, you know, helped you.
Right. Everyone's path is highly unique, but at the same time, everyone's path is eerily similar. Right. And you have no idea where your career is going to go or what your path is until you start working it. Did I ever think I was going to play in Mongolia? No. Like, you know, you play that game in elementary school, you like spin the globe and you stop it with your finger and that's where you're going to live. Like, I never hit Mongolia.
It's a pretty big area too.
Big area too.
Really hit it once or twice, but
must have.
I must have just, like, what is this
just
place?
Move my finger a little to the left. Oh, China. Yeah.
Exactly.
But so you can learn from everyone, right? We're all going, like, you're in Denmark now. I have a lot of questions for you. I don't know anyone in Denmark, and I'd like to know how it is there. There's many questions, right? You can learn from all these different people. I've never been to Australia. Dylan, please tell me about this, and this. How is this? Instead of being jealous that these people have opportunities, it's a potential connection. The first thing you said in the episode was how small this football world is and how you know this person and know this person. And, I know this coach. And like, the longer you're in this industry, the more you realize that everyone knows everyone. Like, it seems crazy, but like, there's a very small group of people doing the same thing we're doing. And we're going through even though they're highly unique, they're very similar experiences. And you could take a little something from everyone's experience.
Yeah, without a doubt. It almost becomes like a little bit of a fraternity, I guess. Like, you know, it's all these people that have kind of similar mindsets and they want to help each other. And even if it's not in the way of like getting them a trial or getting them an opportunity, like this for me is super big. Like, just to meet you guys, like, hear your insight, hear some of the things that you have gone through and like your ideology about trials and everything. Like, this is helping me, you know, this is helping me learn. I'm learning new things and gaining experience in this. Like, there's so much to be had from this pursuit and meeting these people along the way.
Yeah, I think every single experience is just an opportunity to learn. And it's very likewise with us. Anytime that we, you know, a big reason why we started the podcast was, you know, just to form bonds and form connections with people who are going through similar things. So, I mean, it's happening right here. We've never met each other face to face, but we have so much in common in terms of, you know, goals and, you know, things that we struggled with. And, you know, each person that you meet, each coach that you meet, each team that you've been on, all of these guys, you know, it's just an opportunity to learn. And I think, you know, when you look at it that way, it just becomes an even more exciting experience. And you look back at it and you won't be filled with regret, is because, like, you know, one day you might never be a professional soccer player, but if you played amateur in Germany and amateur in Sweden, and, you know, you played semi-professional here, or, you know, it's like, these are all just things that you've learned and experiences you've learned, and then connections that you've made around the globe. There's so many ways to define success. And for me, that was just, it's one of the biggest, you know, whether I get on a massive team and, you know, I'm full-time and I, you know, don't have to have a second job or anything like this. to me, that's not the biggest success from all of this. I think it's everything else that I will and have learned.
Yeah, I think maybe we can talk about, as you know, we've learned so much in doing this. What are some experiences that really stand out for you as maybe an amazing and one of your best experiences kind of in this pursuit of the game, or maybe one of the toughest experiences that you went through in these past couple of years along your career? Maybe Sean, if we want to start with you.
Yes, I'll take the hard question. So I would have to say that it's everything together, just kind of like a conglomerate experience of this whole thing. Is that I think Dylan mentioned before, is like you can't grow in a comfortable environment. And what an easy way to put yourself in an uncomfortable environment than leaving your country and going somewhere that they don't speak the same language. Because now daily life, going to get food at the market now it's everything is what quote unquote a stressor, right? Yeah. You have to think now. Like I remember first coming to Mongolia was a little different because the amount of Mongolian I learned was minuscule. But Germany, like I'd come home and like my head hurts from trying to speak German and learn German and listen to German. It's like we'd have to think to listen. Like I can't tie my shoes and listen to the coach at the same time. Nope. Like I have to stare at him and see his mouth to comprehend what he's saying. It's like little things like this that you would not get in America. You know, I could be talking to someone else and still listening to the coach at the same time. Like little things like that I would never have learned until I went to a country where they're speaking a language that I've, other than thank you, there's no word, or beer, you know, das Boot we've heard in movies. It's like, I don't know any German. No one speaks German at home. And you put yourself in an uncomfortable environment and then you just learn from it. And like it becomes, at this point, it's almost not addicting, but it's like I really enjoy it. It's like being in a situation like a trial, for example. Like I love it. It's like, because I mentioned this to Dylan when he was on trial for, I don't know, it was probably 7-8 weeks. Like I missed that at the time because I've been on this team now for a year, but it's like when you're on trial, every day is game day. Like those game day butterflies and like you're hyped to play and like you're tuned in every single second. That's what it is on trial. But this is practice. But because I'm on a team and I think, you know, I'm pretty confident I'm going to play on the weekend, I might not be going 110% every training. But when you're on trial, there isn't a second option. Like this is end all be all. And you miss that. I miss that feeling, right? Especially when you're not playing games. It's like, I don't want to change shoes with you, but like I kind of want to change shoes with you. Like I want to be in that.
Sean would like ask me questions after each session. Like he was a fiend. Like, hey, how's the trial? Like,
man, I don't know if I've ever met a player that's like, yo, my favorite part is the trial. Like,
I mean, not built different, but like you understand what I'm saying. It's like this. Yeah. Being in an uncomfortable situation, an uncomfortable environment is comfortable. Like this is the new common thing.
Addicting, isn't it? Like it becomes addicting at times.
It's like this is the adrenaline rush you get. I mean, it really, for me, it's a totally a real thing. Like going back to America and speaking English and just like going through the motions. It's like, wow, it makes me realize how much I enjoy being out of the country and being in these like uncomfortable environments where this is not what you grew up doing. You didn't grow up speaking German. Like I'm so shocked by myself where sometimes like I talk German, I didn't think about it. Like I'm not fluent in German. I can speak it pretty well, but it's like I'm listening and speaking German and I'm not thinking twice about it. Like this is ridiculous. 3 years ago, I was in Mongolia and now I'm in a country speaking a different language, like not really thinking about it. Like this is like, I'm getting paid to do this. Like Dylan said, someone's paying me to live in another country and kick a ball around. Like it can't be better than this.
Yeah. Yeah. Quickly before I pass it to you, Dylan, I do want to bring up that point that I don't know if people fully realize that are from America. Like when you just go to the grocery store or you get on the train, you're kind of like, you're just hyper aware of everything, you know, like what if somebody comes and asks me something? You go through scenarios of like what potential conversations could be. What would I say if they say this? And it's crazy because I think what it did for me also is it just makes your comfort zone that much bigger, right? You do all these uncomfortable things. And then, like you said, you go back to America. Remember the first time I went back to America after Germany, nothing at all was like scary. Everything was just so easy. Because when you're in a place like Germany and you don't know the language at all, just going to the grocery store you get a little bit nervous. Like, what if somebody asks me a question?
Yeah.
And I'm now kind of in the early stages of that. And here in Denmark, and probably even more people, I would say, speak English here than maybe even Germany. But still, their primary language is Danish. So like you said, at training, when the coach is talking, I almost feel like a psycho sometimes because I'm just staring at his mouth. I'm trying to see if I can pick up any words. And sometimes people ask me, they're like, are you getting anything? And I'm like, I don't know. I got like a couple words, but I still can't always get the context or can't get full sentences. So it's interesting that you mentioned that as well.
Danish is a tough one too. I've been to Copenhagen, and that's a tough language. All those Nordic languages are very tough because there's with German, there's a lot of, although it's different and the structure of it is much different, there's still so much overlap in terms of words and stuff. Like water, Wasser. It's like, these things like can become very like second nature. But it brought just not a specific story, but funny occurrences. And Sean will back this up, is like, especially in the beginning, I've gotten better, but especially in the beginning, like I would just have it in my head, like getting a coffee. There's like a routine of like what they will ask. And in my head, it's like a planned thing. It's like practiced out. Like, okay, I say this, and then I say this, and then I say this. But what, really gets you is when they throw you for a loophole and start saying something else.
Then you're like, oh shit, I don't know.
And I've done this before, and I've just completely answered it like a question that was like, do you want a lid for your cup? And I'm like, no, black coffee is fine. And they're like, wait, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But it's I've gotten, obviously, because my German has gotten better, but it's just one of those things that like, I mean, I understand everything in the USA, so it's much easier. But I also just find I'm less embarrassed now. Like when I go home, I just find I'm less embarrassed if I do something that's like silly or whatever. I just like, you stop caring because I've probably said the wrong thing to Germans and Swedes so many times that it who cares?
It's like the overarching theme here, I think, is like, it just gets rid of the ego. Like, here I am speaking, in the beginning, I'm speaking like a child. Like, I just went to pay for my coffee and she asked if I'd like anything else. And I told her my favorite color is blue. It's like, what, I'm trying, and I'm going to be foolish. If you're learning a language is an easy thing to talk about it, because it's like, you're whatever we are, we're 26 and I'm trying to speak, and this little 2-year-old can speak better than me.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I think about what I just said and what I said in English and translate it 1-to-1, like, that's what it is. It's like, would you want a coffee? No, I like dogs. It's like, what? But like, in the beginning, like Dylan said, you have this conversation planned out in your head, and then they ask you something that you didn't expect them to ask, and you just panic. It's like, oh, I'm out. Like,
it actually happened to me. I'm not even gonna lie. This happened to me yesterday. So I'm at the grocery store, right? And there's like, like when you accumulate like rewards at a grocery store, there's like a thing that they check. So it's like, it's like payback card, but payback Karte. But you can also say, like, when they ask you how you want to pay, you can also say pay by Karte. It's just kind of like English, German, like it's just kind of like scrunched together. And I said that, and like the lady at the cash register like brought out the little scan gun, and she was trying to scan my credit card for a second, like with a gun. And we both looked at each other like, okay, wait, we're on two different wavelengths here. Like, let's rewind. And then I was like, oh, like this, obviously, like, let me start saying something different now. So now it's like, I'll just say mit Karte, which is a little not as, which is just not as similar, and can,
she scanned your credit card and then asked for your social after that. It's kind of weird.
She robbed your bank account blind.
I gave her everything too. I was so nervous.
Yeah, I've two little thoughts that came to mind when we were mentioning this, because I think anyone who comes overseas like has at least one, if not 100 experiences like this. I had one similar at the grocery store where I had like gotten in my head, I had the routine where I think this is back in Germany, and I knew they were always going to ask if I wanted the receipt or not. So, you know, I just got in the habit of being like, no, thank you. So she had asked me if I wanted to pay by cash or card. And I was just like, no, thank you. And then she was kind of like, what? And then I handed the cash, and then it just kind of, the conversation just ended, and, you know, it went seamlessly. But there's one other one where I went to an Oberliga game with a teammate of mine, and I had always tried to learn German while I was there. A lot of my teammates just didn't, because they were like, you know, I speak English and a lot of people speak English here, so it'll be fine. So we went to go like get the tickets for the game, and I was paying for the both of us, and I like asked if I could get two, and he asked me something, and I think he had just asked me, because he didn't hear me, he just asked me to repeat myself. But it's like that moment where they ask you something and you don't know what it is, and you sort of just freeze. And so I looked at my teammate, who I know spoke no German at all, and I was like, what did he say? But I'm like, this is so dumb. He's not going to know either. Now we both just look like idiots, and I've added him into this process as well. So it's just funny how anyone who kind of comes over to Europe, everyone has that sort of experience that's happened to them a handful of times.
Happens too often, honestly, too often.
And you can't help but laugh. It's just like,
it's
this
funny.
is funny.
Yeah.
Like, I'm learning a new language in a different country. Like, I just made a fool of myself, and like, hopefully it made them laugh. I'm laughing about it, and great. Like, I just made someone laugh over, trying to buy a coffee.
I have one more just to add on. I know there's been a few of these kind of stories, but I thought this one was funny. They're so funny to me. It was like, I was at a pharmacy, and I like paid for it. And I thought that this was early on. I thought she asked if I wanted a receipt, and I said, no, thank you. And I started to walk out. And then she was like, wait. She was asking me like to wait because my card hadn't gone through. And she said that, and I just said, no, thank you. Like, imagine that in the US, like the lady goes, your card isn't going through, 1 second. And you go, no, thank you. And you just start to walk out. Like that was me. She must've been like, this guy is insane. But I mean, it's so funny to think about now. Like, I was almost out of there. I almost got some free chips. And
imagine you get tackled by a cop.
It's exactly like Sean said. You know, you look back on it now and we can laugh. You know, in the moment you're like, oh God. But now you can look back on it and laugh. You probably made that person laugh a little bit. And sometimes the thing I remind myself too is I'm like, I'm never going to see this person again. You know what I mean? They might think of this story for a few minutes, but it's not going to affect like my life at all in a serious way. Right. So it's just funny.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, but like, you can learn from it too. It's like, because when we're first learning a language, like in the beginning, we all went through it, is like, you have this conversation planned out in your head already. And then they ask you something that you weren't expecting. And instead of just listening to what they said and trying to figure it out, it's like a panic. Like,
or telling them to repeat, or saying, I don't understand, you know, like, these like are you could just say like, things.
Excuse me, wie bitte? And they could say it again, and then you're listening. But instead of this, you just panic. And then you like start speaking Mongolian to them. It's like, just come. But you could take this like in any other adversity situation, like, control your emotions, stay level headed, see what the problem is again, ask, excuse me. They could say it again, like in English. Someone says something to you and you don't understand it, you say, can you repeat it? Right. Yeah. But like, for whatever reason, in this situation, it's just like immediate panic, adrenaline's pumping, and it's like, I'm just trying to get a piece of bread. Like, that's it.
Come on.
It's so crazy. I don't understand it sometimes. Like, I get so much more stressed in those situations than anything related to football whatsoever. You know what I mean? Somebody asked me something in a pharmacy and I'm like,
it's crazy. And I mean, like, we're both in countries where a lot of people at least speak a little bit of English. So you can say like, no, I don't understand, or like, do you speak English, or like, English is better. Like, I mean, you could even say it in English, and you could get around.
There's a backup plan.
There's always a backup plan, but you don't think that. You think your first reaction is like sweating.
I'm gonna
like,
die.
Oh my God.
Fight or flight.
It's that fight or flight. And what I was, it doesn't know, I don't know how I feel about it, whether I appreciate that they're accommodating to me, or whether I just feel like an idiot, is when you ask them like to repeat themselves, or you ask them what, and then they clock, oh, he doesn't know the language.
And they go straight to English.
And they go straight to English. I'm always like, oh, damn.
That's not as bad as speaking perfect German like the words were right, and then them answering in English because like, oh, there's no way this guy's German. I was like, God, I had it all, like there was nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Just wanted a coffee. I prepared, I practiced, and she answers in English. I'm like,
rehearsed
oh,
in my apartment. I'm ready for this moment.
yeah, I was in front of the mirror for 30 minutes
to us the
before
other
I
day
left.
at the coffee shop. Dylan said it perfectly in English. I mean, perfectly in German. We like order 2 coffees, and she just answers in English. And it's like we didn't say anything to you in English.
I've had a lot of practice ordering coffees in German. I've had a lot of practice, so I know if what I say is right at this point.
Yeah.
And it's a little demoralizing.
Preparation builds confidence.
Yeah,
what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they
It's
have
like
the power to take that confidence as soon as they speak English back to you. You're like, oh, damn.
It's like scoring a goal and like no one cheered and everyone just is pretending like it's a goal kick. It's like it's terrible feeling.
Oh my God, what an analogy.
That is quite an analogy.
All right, maybe not like nailing the coffee order in German is not a goal, but it's a similar feeling. It's great.
You go to get your coffee, you just knee slide.
Just fully celebrating outside of the shop. Like,
do the Ronaldo C. Take off the jersey. I'm like holding it.
Oh man, that's awesome. Oh, this has been a lot of fun, guys. I definitely want to give you a couple minutes here though at the end to kind of plug your podcast a little bit and talk, maybe give the listeners kind of what you're all about and where they can listen to you, where they can follow along with your guys' journey and consume your episodes.
Sean, who you want me to take it? You take it.
You do a combo. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is new for us. We're not usually plugging our podcast on someone else's. So yeah, you guys can just search us on, wherever you listen to podcasts, Footwork Podcast. Instagram is Footwork_podcast. Twitter, I believe, is Footwork Podcast. Don't quote me on that. YouTube, Footwork Podcast, all these things that, with a search, you'll find us. Basically we tell a similar story to you and, in the 11 pod. And we're very focused on making your own path. We always end each episode saying a very similar kind of catchphrase. And, it's about making your own path. It's about following your dreams. It's about learning. It's about taking these failures on and, choosing the route that's not safe and being uncomfortable. A lot of the topics that we touched on today is a lot of the things that we like to talk about. We like to take some of these topics and dive even deeper. We have guests on all the time, and it's fun. We're building even more connections throughout the world, and sometimes stepping outside of the soccer realm to kind of bring ideas. Like we just had Sean's brother on, who is very military involved. Flies Blackhawks, was in all these realms, and we try and build the bridge and take some of the similar viewpoints that you could take in a military life and bring it into soccer or into work or into any of these things. And it's really just about being the best version of yourselves. And that's what we're trying to preach on Footwork. Whether, Sean and I are doing it ourselves is remain to be seen, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It's just all about making your own path and pursuing your dream, not being scared of failure, right? It's just a process that we're pushing for. And like you said, with my brother or any other guest we've had outside of the soccer realm, like as different as our journeys are, there's very similar values in it all. When you're doing everything you can do to succeed at whatever it is, there's overlaying themes with everyone's journey. And once you get talking to them, especially in this long form via podcast, you realize that, wow, this is not as different as it might seem on paper. This person's doing this and I'm going in this direction, but actually, wait, we are thinking about things very similar. And I think that's really apparent to see throughout all the episodes, and like this conversation, as different as our journeys are, and we're in different places, and we've never met before this, other than listening to each other's podcasts, our journeys are very similar, right? Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I love about my podcast. What I've tried to do and what you guys are trying to do as well is, yes, it's it's going to cater itself to soccer a lot because that's, what we know best. And that's kind of our journey that we're on. So sure, there's going to be lots of players out there that are going to listen to, our story and maybe follow along. But what I hope people can take away from is just our idea of just pursuing what really makes you happy. You know what I mean? Don't just do the safe thing. Don't just do the status quo thing because that's what society has told you to do. If your dream is to become a musician, start your own business, whatever it may be, I think try and maybe listen to our story for these points that we talk about, talk about resiliency and mental toughness and just being, falling in love with the process rather than falling in love with that end goal, that destination. All these things can be applicable to a lot of other different careers. And so I hope people can, appreciate us for what we're doing in the soccer world, but also maybe, we can attract some other kind of audience and just build a community of people that are trying to do something a little bit outside the box, when it all comes down to it.
Couldn't agree more. The analogies may be different because we're playing a sport. It could be the same in any realm, any career. Trials are like job interviews, and failures can happen all the time. You get fired from a job and you don't re-sign with a team. Like all of these things have the same exact lessons that you can be learned from it. And both of us were just telling our stories from the version of soccer, but I still think there's so much more to gain in terms of overcoming failure, obstacles, building connections. I mean, it's endless, really. So I think, yes, it's a soccer related podcast for both of us, but it's a life, it's a following a dream, and it's not settling for the safe route and doing, like you said, doing what makes you happy. These are the important things that I think we're all trying to preach and help, people below us, kind of realize the same things.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I appreciate you guys so much for being on today. We had Footwork Podcast in the 11 today, both Sean and Dylan. Some great stuff from both of you guys today. And again, I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to jump on with me. And it's been a really fun conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure, man. Can't wait to do it again. And I really like the sound of that Footwork Podcast in the 11. That has a nice roll to it.
Yeah,
right,
maybe
I like that.
Collaboration in the future. You never know.
Of course, all the time. Yeah,
it won't be the last time. That's
for sure not.
Yeah, definitely. It will be a good one to have you guys on again, and people can learn a lot from this. So everybody out there, let me know what you thought of the episode, and do the rounds. Like I say, follow us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, all the same places that you can find Footwork. And make sure you go subscribe to Footwork as well, because they have some great content as well. And I think you can learn a lot from these guys as well. So appreciate everybody out there.